That night the ranch glowed like a memory trying to hold itself together. Lanterns hung low over tables draped in linen I had embroidered by hand, and white flowers filled the garden with a sweetness that ached. The band played slow songs that wrapped the guests in warm familiarity. My name is Martha. I am 62 now, but that evening I wore my mother's royal blue dress, hoping that a piece of the past might steady the present. Daniel looked handsome, but there was a distance in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Claire stood beside him like a statue that had learned to smile, polished, poised, and untouchably composed. She had arrived 2 years earlier with perfume, ambition, and a confidence scented with something too sharp for a place like this. Claire had always looked at me as if the ranch and I belonged to a world she didn't want to understand. Everything in their world smelled clean and new, while everything in mine carried the soft dust of 4 generations. When I stepped into the reception hall, Claire glanced at me, then leaned toward Daniel, whispering. He walked over wearing the same guilty look he had as a boy, the one I recognized from the nights he slipped outside to mend a fence he was too young to fix. "Mom," he said softly, "Claire feels the blue is too flashy. She thinks it's drawing attention." My chest tightened. For a moment I saw the boy who once promised he'd never leave this land. "If it makes things easier, I can change," I said gently, because that is what mothers do. We soften ourselves to make room for the happiness of those we love. But his voice shifted into something I hadn't heard before. "No, it's better if you leave. Claire is uncomfortable. She says you judge her." The band played on. 200 people kept talking, unaware that my world had begun to tilt. Then Daniel said it louder, clear enough for every ear nearby. "Get out, Mom. My fiancé doesn't want you here." It wasn't a private wound. It was a public cut, sharp, humiliating, unforgettable. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I simply nodded, picked up my purse, and walked out while the music continued as if nothing had shattered. Driving back to the ranch, the bronze keys hung heavy against my chest, the same keys my father had given me before he died. They had opened barns, safes, doors, and stories. Someday, they were meant to be Daniel's. Lately, he had asked about them too often. Claire had been watching them even more. At home, the quiet felt hollow. I folded the blue dress carefully and placed it in the closet like a relic from a gentler time. Night settled on the land, and I did not sleep. The oak trees outside stood like old witnesses, and the photographs on the wall looked back at me with the knowing calm of ancestors who had survived storms far greater than weddings. The next morning, my phone rang. Daniel's name lit the screen. His voice was tired, almost apologetic. "Mom, can you come to the ranch? We need to talk." A simple request, yet inside it, the world shifted again. What exactly will Daniel ask of her, and what long-buried truth will Martha face when she returns home? When I drove back to the ranch that morning, the road felt longer than usual, as if every turn was asking whether I was ready for what waited ahead. Daniel's voice on the phone had sounded tired, worn down, unsure. That alone frightened me. My son had always been steady, especially on this land he knew like his own skin. But ever since Claire arrived, something in him had shifted like a fence weakened at its posts. The ranch looked exactly the same, the old oaks bending over the dirt road, the horses grazing in the soft morning light, the wooden porch where Daniel and I once shared coffee at sunrise. After Samuel died 15 years ago, the ranch became our shelter. Daniel was only 12 then, a boy trying to shoulder the weight of a grown man. I still remember his small hands gripping tools far too heavy for him. "Mom, I can fix the fence," he'd insist. "No, sweetheart. You're still a child." "Not anymore," he'd say, jaw tight. "I'm the man of the house now." We learned how to survive together. He grew up between the hum of tractors, the whistle of wind through the barn slats, and the quiet nights when grief softened into routine. When he went away to college and returned, he stood taller than before, certain, grounded, ready to take on the work Samuel had left behind. "My place is here," he once told me. "My children will grow up on this land." But that boy began to fade the day Claire stepped into our lives. The first time she visited, her polished heels sank into the ranch soil. Her eyes scanned the house the way a buyer sizes up a property. "You live here?" she asked. Before I could reply, Daniel answered quickly, "We live here. Isn't it beautiful?" She smiled, but her eyes looked at our home like it was something she intended to replace. Over the months, small changes crept in. Daniel began returning home later, his boots carrying less of the land and more of the city. He stopped drinking coffee on the porch at dusk. He started using words that didn't belong to him. "Mom, Claire says the ranch has potential." Potential for what? For events. For income. For modern use. These were Claire's words, not his. And he said them like someone reciting lines fed to him. That morning, when I stepped into the house, Daniel was in the kitchen. He looked tired, older than his years, but his posture was stiff, like he had rehearsed what he needed to say. "Mom," he began slowly, "I want us to talk calmly." We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Samuel and I once planned our future and taught Daniel the meaning of responsibility. Daniel hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck the way he used to when he was nervous. "Claire thinks the ranch could be more," he said. "She believes we're not using it to its full potential." I stayed silent. "And she thinks maybe the key should be with me now." There it was. The sentence that had been approaching for months. I touched the keys under my blouse. They felt heavier than iron. "Daniel," I said gently, "you don't need the keys. What you need is to remember who you were, before someone else told you who to be." He flinched. And for a moment, the boy he used to be flickered across his face. But there was something else in his eyes too: fear, hesitation, or guilt. Something he wasn't ready to confess. What secret is Daniel hiding, and how will it push Martha into the first real fight for her land? For 2 days after our conversation, Daniel didn't call. The silence hung in the house the way a storm waits at the edge of the sky before it breaks. I tried to busy myself with small chores, sweeping the porch, watering the roses, but every sound felt like a warning. Even the land seemed restless. On the third afternoon, as the light softened over the fields, a knock came at the door. Not Daniel, Mr. Miller. He stood in the doorway, his suit smelling faintly of pipe tobacco, his face lined with something heavier than age. His presence felt like history arriving to warn me. "Martha, may I come in?" he asked. We sat in the living room, though he didn't relax into the chair. He opened his leather folder slowly, as if the papers inside carried risks of their own. "I received a strange call," he said. "From Claire." My stomach tightened before he continued. "She asked about Samuel's will, specifically about Daniel's share. She wanted to know if it could be transferred, sold, or taken out of your control." The air in the room thinned. "And you told her?" I whispered. "I told her nothing," he replied firmly. "But the questions she asked." Martha, she wasn't making polite inquiries. She was looking for weaknesses. A chill ran across my skin. He glanced around the living room, the photographs on the walls, the old wooden furniture Samuel's father had carved. Then he sighed and reached back into his folder. "Your husband came to me shortly before he died," he said carefully. "He asked me to draft and certify a sealed document." He didn't explain the content, but his tone. I knew it mattered. My breath caught. He handed me a single sheet of yellowed paper. "I made a copy," he admitted softly. "I shouldn't have. But something told me you might need it one day." My hands trembled as I unfolded it. Samuel's handwriting looked exactly as it had on grocery lists and birthday cards: steady, careful, alive. The words blurred in my eyes before settling into place. "Martha, if you are reading this, someone is trying to take the ranch from you." It felt like the floor fell beneath me. He wrote about a sick man he met in the hospital, a man whose son and daughter-in-law convinced him to sign papers he didn't understand. They took his house, moved him into a nursing home. He died alone, betrayed by the people he trusted most. Samuel continued. "I fear not Daniel's heart, but the hands that may try to shape it. People can influence a good man into forgetting who he is. Protect the keys. Protect the ranch. Trust your instincts above anyone's promises." By the time I finished reading, tears had spilled onto Samuel's words. Mr. Miller placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Your husband knew, Martha. Not exactly what would happen, but he knew enough to protect you." My voice shook. "What should I do?" "Put this letter somewhere safe. Open a safety deposit box. And Martha, Be cautious. People do dangerous things when property is involved. That night I sat in the dark, Samuel's letter pressed against my chest. Fear whispered in one ear, clarity in the other. The lines had been drawn long before I realized a battle was coming. And Daniel, he wasn't just scared. He was complicit. Claire had already set him on a path he didn't know how to step off. What have Daniel and Claire already set in motion, and how far will they go before Martha is forced to fight back? The next morning, I woke with a weight in my chest that felt different, not fear, not sadness, but readiness. Samuel's letter had cut through the fog, leaving only truth behind. If Claire and Daniel were already searching for legal gaps, then this wasn't just tension. It was strategy. I dressed quietly, the house still dark, and touched the keys hanging against my skin cold, steady, a reminder that generations before me had fought storms bigger than this. And now it was my turn. At 7 a.m., I called my doctor. "Come immediately," he said. His voice was concerned, but he didn't ask questions. He had known Samuel, known Daniel as a boy. He understood the kind of woman I was, someone who didn't ask for help unless she needed it. When I arrived at the clinic, he took one look at my face and nodded. "You want full exams, don't you?" "Yes," I said quietly. "Physical, cognitive, everything. And in writing." He didn't argue. He simply picked up his clipboard and began the process. Blood tests, memory tests, reaction tests, orientation questions. Hours passed, and finally he sat across from me, his expression full of both relief and pride. "Martha," he said, "you are healthier and sharper than most people in their 40s. Whatever someone is trying to imply, it won't stand in court." A breath I didn't realize I'd been holding slipped out slowly. "Can you certify that?" I asked. "I will," he said. "And I'll notarize it myself." When I left the clinic, I felt taller. At 1 p.m., I walked into the local bank, greeted by the familiar scent of old carpet and ink. The clerk, a young woman named Emily, recognized me immediately. "Mrs. Hayes, what brings you in today?" "I need a safety deposit box," I said. "Of course." "Something valuable." "Something old," I replied. "And something worth protecting." Inside the quiet back room, I placed Samuel's letter, copies of the will, land titles, and the new medical certificates in the metal box. When I closed the lid, it felt like sealing a chapter, one that no one, not even my own son, could tamper with. When I returned home, the house felt calmer. Maybe it was the certainty I now carried. Maybe it was the soft afternoon light filling the hallways. Or maybe it was that, for the first time, I had taken a step forward instead of simply defending myself. But peace didn't last long. At 4:30 p.m., my phone rang. "Daniel." I hesitated, then answered. "Mum," he said, voice low and tense. "We need to talk." "What about?" "Claire told me you were rude to her yesterday." I was honest, I corrected. He exhaled sharply. "She said you insulted her. That you refused to cooperate about the ranch." "I refused to be manipulated." Silence. Then Daniel spoke carefully, each word clearly fed to him. "Mom, Claire thinks you need help." "What kind of help?" "Professional help. Maybe counseling. Maybe medical supervision. You've been isolated. Emotional. Defensive." There it was, exactly what Mr. Miller had warned me. "Daniel," I said, gripping the phone, "do you think I'm mentally unstable?" "No," he said quickly. "But I think you're lonely. And the ranch is too big for you. Maybe you should stay with us for a while. Leave the keys at home. Just for safety." For a moment the room tilted, not from fear, but realization. Claire had already planted the seeds. And Daniel believed every word. "I'm not leaving my home," I said quietly. "And the keys stay with me." His voice sharpened. "Then I don't know what else to do, Mum." "You could choose to trust me," I whispered. Silence. Heavy. Final. He hung up without saying goodbye. I stood in the kitchen for a long time, the phone still in my hand. The house felt bigger than ever, not empty, but echoing with the truth. This wasn't about modernizing. It wasn't about helping me. It was about control. What will Daniel and Claire try next, and how far will they go to prove Martha unfit for her own home? For 3 days after Daniel's call, the ranch felt different, not empty, but watched. The wind moved through the oak trees in a colder way, the floorboards creaked louder, and even the horses seemed restless, stomping the dirt as if they sensed a storm approaching. I tried to lose myself in chores, but every few minutes I found my eyes drifting toward the road, waiting for something I didn't want to see. It came on the fourth afternoon. I was pruning the rose bushes, the ones my mother planted 40 years ago, when I heard engines. Not one. 2 trucks and a car. My stomach tightened. I took off my gloves slowly. Daniel stepped out of the first truck. Claire emerged from the car. And from the second truck came 2 men in suits carrying briefcases. Lawyers. The moment their feet hit the gravel, the air shifted. Daniel didn't look at me. Not once. He stood stiff, hands in his pockets, eyes trained on the ground like a boy caught doing something he didn't want to admit. "Mum," he said, voice flat, practiced. "We need to talk inside." I didn't move. "Who are they?" Claire answered for him, smiling like she was hosting a lunch instead of a confrontation. "Victoria, don't worry. They're just here to go over a few legal matters. Nothing serious." Legal matters. Not serious. The words scraped like metal against stone. Against every instinct, I opened the door and let them in. A mistake, but sometimes you must let a snake show its fangs before you know where to strike. The lawyer sat on the sofa, Claire in the armchair, Daniel by the window. His back was to me, his reflection trembling in the glass. Attorney Williams adjusted his glasses. "Mrs. Hayes, your son has asked us to represent his interests as co-owner of this ranch." Co-owner. Not son. Not family. He placed documents on the table. "We've reviewed your late husband's will. While you retain administrative control, there is a clause allowing a co-owner to request property division if he believes the estate's value is being neglected." My heart thudded once, deep and slow. "This ranch," he continued, "generates no income and has no commercial function. Legally, that can be interpreted as deteriorating the property's value." "This is my home," I said quietly. "And a $3 million asset," Attorney Smith added with a thin smile. "One that could generate over $500,000 a year if used properly." Claire leaned in, hands folded neatly over her knee. "Martha, this isn't about taking anything from you. It's about giving Daniel and the family we're starting a future." Her hand drifted to her stomach. A gesture rehearsed. "Victoria," she said softly, "I'm pregnant." The world didn't stop, it tilted. Daniel finally turned. His eyes were red, tired, but determined. "It's true, Mum. And I want to give my child stability. A life better than scraping by on an old ranch stuck in the past." I swallowed hard. "Congratulations," I whispered. Claire nodded graciously. "Thank you. And because of the baby, we really need to move forward with modernizing the ranch. It's the responsible thing to do." Responsible. The word stung. Then Lawyer Williams spoke again. "If you refuse cooperation, we will be forced to request a court-ordered division of assets. In such cases, judges consider age, mental stability, and ability to manage large properties." There it was. The real weapon. Age. Mental stability. Unfit. "Are you threatening to declare me incompetent?" I asked calmly. "We're simply stating possibilities," he replied. Daniel didn't deny it. He didn't defend me. He just watched the floor. "Give us the keys, Mum," he said. "Let us help." For a moment, I saw the little boy who once fixed fences with hands too small. But the man standing before me was a stranger wearing my son's face. "No," I said. His jaw clenched. "Then this is going to get ugly." "It already has," I whispered. "They've drawn their battle lines, but what will Martha do next, now that the fight has come into her home?" When the trucks had gone and the dust settled, the house felt colder, as if the shadows had remembered the sound of footsteps that had once belonged to kindness. I stood in the hallway for a long time with the phone still warm in my hand. Daniel's words repeated in my head like a chant. Let us help. He hadn't asked. He had demanded. And the lawyers had placed a possibility like a blade between my ribs: age, incompetence, deterioration. For a while I simply breathed. Then I did what Samuel had taught me to do when storms came: plan, prepare, and be steady. I called Mr. Miller immediately. He picked up on the second ring as if he were waiting by the phone. His voice was calm but sharp. "I feared this," he said. "They've moved faster than I expected. Can we stop them?" I asked. "Not entirely," he admitted. "But we can slow them. And we can harden your position." We made a list over the kitchen table in the dim light. Medical certifications already done, the sealed letter, copies of the will, witnesses who could speak to my competence and my daily routine, records proving the ranch's maintenance. Mr. Miller spoke of injunctions, emergency filings, and strategies to make a judge see the full picture, not the cherry-picked version Claire and her attorneys would show. Also, he said, we need to show motive. If they try to paint you as stubborn, we'll show that you are a guardian. If they try to show economic negligence, we'll show expense records, upkeep logs, and tenants who can testify to the land's value that's not only monetary. I felt each word like a plank being set down beneath my feet. By dusk, I sent letters and made phone calls. I walked through the house touching the banister, the table, the study door that had once been Samuel's kingdom. I cataloged everything in my head, then on paper. The keys hung between my breasts like the heart of the house. But planning is not only paper. It is also armor for the spirit. The next morning, Mr. Miller arrived with 2 men from his firm and a stack of documents. He moved through the house like an ally who knows the land. "We'll file a preemptive motion," he told me. "We'll ask the court to recognize your administrative authority while challenges proceed. It will buy time and increase the cost for them if they press on." "And if they try to question my faculties?" I asked. "We'll introduce your medical evaluations, your notarized statements, and several character affidavits from neighbors, suppliers, and friends. And we'll ask for a psychiatric evaluation on their side if needed. The goal is to make the court see this isn't a family spat, it's a protection of legacy." There was a bitterness to the day, the idea that love had been weaponized into paperwork, but also a fierce clarity. My son had crossed a line. Claire had drawn it for him. But lines can be redrawn. When Mr. Miller left, he placed one folder gently on the table, a draft of a revised will that would strengthen protections and complicate any future attempts to force a sale. "This is heavy," he said. "It will slow them, and it will make any move against you public and costly." I sat with the folder and felt something shift, not victory, not yet, but the return of a stubborn, patient force inside me. For the first time since the wedding, fear and determination sat in the same room. That evening, I walked out to the porch as the sun went down. Daniel's truck appeared in the distance and stopped at the bottom of the drive. He got out alone this time, empty-handed, unsure. He walked slowly up the path, his steps different than the ones that had arrived with lawyers. When he reached the porch, he said nothing at first. I looked at him, at the man my hands had studied and taught, and I realized how far we had both changed. "You were at the house," he said finally. I didn't think they would be so cold." "I know," I replied. "And now you are going to have to choose what kind of man you want to be." He swallowed. "I'm scared, Mum." "So am I said honestly. But courage doesn't mean not being afraid. It means facing the thing that scares you." He looked at the keys around my neck. His eyes were full of a shame I had not seen before. For the first time in months, he stepped close without recoil. "The legal fight has begun, but will Daniel stand with his mother or against her? And when the court doors open, what truth will be revealed inside them?" Daniel stood on the porch as if the weight of every wrong choice he had made was pressing against his shoulders. The late evening light cut across his face, revealing exhaustion, guilt, and something he hadn't shown in months, hesitation. He wasn't here as my enemy. Not fully. But not as my son either. "Mum," he said softly, "Claire didn't tell me everything. I didn't know the lawyers would talk to you like that." It would have been easy to grab that thread of guilt and pull, but Samuel once told me, never comfort a man out of a mistake he chose willingly. So I stayed still. "Daniel," I said, "you brought those men here. Whatever they said on your behalf." He winced, as if I'd struck him. "I didn't mean for it to go that far. I just want what's best for my family." Best. Such a small word for such a dangerous idea. "And what do you think is best?" I asked. He looked down at his hands, the same hands that once held fence wire and horse reins beside me. Now they trembled. I don't know, he whispered. Everything feels wrong. Claire says the ranch is wasted if it isn't earning. The lawyers say modernizing is the only smart path. And you, he hesitated. You make me feel like I'm betraying Dad. My breath caught because it was true. Not because I said it, but because somewhere deep inside him, he knew he was. Daniel, I said gently, you're not betraying your father by wanting a future. You're betraying him by letting someone else define it for you. He closed his eyes, pained. And then, almost in a whisper, Claire is pregnant. I want to be a good father. But I don't know how to do that if I'm always caught between you and her. There it was, the trap Claire had set so carefully. It isn't a choice between us, I said. It's a choice between what's right and what's easy. He shook his head. You make everything sound like a battle. It became a battle the moment someone tried to take what doesn't belong to them. He flinched again, because he knew exactly who I meant. For a moment, the porch was silent except for the wind brushing through the oak leaves. Daniel's eyes drifted to the keys around my neck, and his expression changed. Not greed. Not resentment. Fear. As if he finally realized what they symbolized. Mom, I'm scared of losing everything. So am I answered. But the difference is, I'm not willing to lose myself to save anything. He swallowed hard, his voice cracking. If this goes to court, it'll destroy us. No, I said calmly. It will reveal us. He stared at me long and searchingly, as if trying to remember the mother he used to trust. His voice lowered. The lawyers want to move fast. They think if we file early, we can force the judge to. He stopped, as if realizing he had said too much. To what? I pressed. He shook his head. I shouldn't have said that. Daniel, I said quietly, look at me. He did, and the boy inside him flickered again, just for a moment. You're standing on a line right now. And whichever direction you choose, will decide the man you become. His throat tightened. I don't know which side is right anymore. You will, I whispered. But not today. He took a step back, defeated not by me, but by his own unraveling loyalties. I should go, he murmured. Then go. He hesitated, looked at me one last time, then walked down the steps slowly, each footstep heavier than the last. When his truck drove away, the quiet that followed wasn't peaceful. It was waiting. Daniel is cracking, but Claire is far from finished. What will she do when she realizes Martha is preparing to fight back? The next morning, the ranch was too still. The kind of stillness that doesn't feel peaceful, only expectant. The wind moved differently, brushing the windows like fingers searching for cracks. I woke early, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table without touching the cup. Last night, Daniel had shown me doubt, which meant Claire had felt it. And people like Claire do not tolerate cracks in their control. At 9:14 a.m., the doorbell rang. I didn't need to look through the window to know who it was. Perfume before footsteps. Confidence before courtesy. Claire. She stood on the porch in a white coat, hair perfectly arranged, one hand on her stomach, the pose she knew softened strangers. But her eyes carried the cold calculation of someone who had rehearsed this confrontation in the mirror. Martha, she said sweetly, we need to talk. May I come in? No, I said. Her smile flickered, just for a second. She adjusted it quickly. That's unfortunate. I was hoping we could discuss things privately, woman to woman. What things? She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Daniel told me what you said last night. So that was it. She had sensed his hesitation, and now she was here to patch the crack. What did he tell you? I asked calmly. That you're trying to turn him against me. Her tone sharpened beneath the softness. That you're manipulating him with guilt about his father. That you're refusing to help us create a future for our child. I didn't flinch. Her words were knives wrapped in silk. Claire, I said, you're not here for a conversation. You're here to control the narrative. She didn't deny it. Instead, she stepped even closer until her perfume filled the air between us. You think you know me, she whispered. But you have no idea what I've sacrificed for him. You've sacrificed nothing, I replied. You've demanded everything. Her eyes hardened. You really think Daniel will choose you? She asked. A 62-year-old woman living in a dying ranch? Or the mother of his child? There it was, the truth beneath all the niceties. This ranch is not dying, I said steadily. Nor am I. She laughed softly. You can keep pretending. But the court won't care about your pride. They'll look at your age, your isolation, your emotional instability. I have medical clearance, I interrupted. That stopped her. A tiny crack in her confidence. You, what? Full evaluations. Certified. Notarized. For the first time since she arrived, she blinked. I continued, and Samuel left documents. Legal ones. You and your lawyers will see them soon enough. Her throat tightened, just slightly, but enough. Then she regained her posture. It doesn't matter. The judge will see that you're alone. You have no income, no support, no. She stopped again. Because behind me, inside the house, someone moved. Mr. Miller stepped into view. Calm. Steady. Suit pressed. Folder in hand. Good morning, Claire, he said. I didn't expect to see you so soon. Her face paled. He continued, as Mrs. Hayes' legal counsel, I must inform you that any future conversations must happen through formal channels. Unannounced visits to influence her statement or mental state can be cited as coercion in court. I hope you understand. Claire opened her mouth, then shut it. Her fingers curled against her coat. This isn't over, she said softly, venom hidden beneath velvet. No, I agreed. It's just beginning. She turned sharply and walked to her car, her heels striking the wood like small explosions. The engine roared, gravel spun, and she disappeared down the road. Mr. Miller closed the door gently behind us. She came to intimidate you, he said. Yes, I answered. And she failed. But in the pit of my stomach, I felt it. She wouldn't return defeated. She would return prepared. Claire has lost the first round, so what dangerous strategy will she unleash next to break Martha before the court date? The following week unfolded like a storm that refused to break, heavy, waiting, gathering force. Every time the phone rang, my heart tightened. Every time a car passed the ranch road, I braced myself. Fear wasn't crippling anymore. It was clarifying. And that clarity was the only thing keeping me steady. Mr. Miller visited almost every day, usually carrying folders that seemed to grow thicker with each decision Claire made. We filled out affidavits, prepared income logs, signed notarized statements, and organized maintenance records dating back 20 years. The house felt less like a home and more like a war room. But I was ready. Until Tuesday morning. At 8:32 a.m., a white sedan pulled up, and a woman in a navy suit stepped out. She carried a clipboard, wore a badge, and had the polite but detached expression of someone who arrived not to help, but to evaluate. Good morning, she said. I'm Ms. Lavoie from Adult Services. My blood ran cold. Not court. Not lawyers. Adult Services. I received an anonymous report, she continued. A concern about your ability to live safely and independently. Anonymous. The most cowardly word in the world. But I already knew whose lips it came from. May I come in? She asked. Before I could answer, Mr. Miller appeared from the study, adjusting his glasses. Yes, but we will record this interaction for legal purposes, and I will be present. Her professional smile faltered for a heartbeat, then returned. Inside, she inspected everything. The kitchen, the bedrooms, the medicine cabinet, the pantry, even how I walked, how I spoke, how I held the banister. It was not an evaluation. It was an intrusion wearing a polite mask. She asked questions in a soft voice, as if talking to a fragile creature. Do you ever feel confused? Do you forget meals? Have you fallen recently? Do you have anyone checking on you weekly? Each question was a rope thrown toward the conclusion Claire wanted. But I answered everyone with calm steadiness, and Mr. Miller documented her reactions. Finally, she closed her clipboard. You seem quite capable, she admitted. More capable than most individuals we evaluate. Then the report was false, Mr. Miller said sharply. She hesitated. The report mentioned emotional instability, fearfulness, paranoia. Her eyes flicked toward me. Have you been anxious recently? I met her gaze directly. Not until people started trying to take my home. Silence. Then she stood. I will file a preliminary assessment. It will state that you are stable, independent, and not at risk. But she paused. The court can still request a psychological evaluation if the petitioning party insists. I knew exactly who the petitioning party would be. When she left, Mr. Miller exhaled in frustration. She came sooner than expected. This means Claire is preparing the paperwork. Let her, I said quietly. Every step she takes shows who she really is. But as the door closed, a tremor passed through me, not fear, but anger so deep it tightened my throat. By afternoon, the official letter arrived. Petition for partition and administrative transfer. Filed by Daniel Hayes. Represented by Gordon and Fell attorneys. Attached was a request for a court-ordered evaluation, temporary suspension of my administrative rights, mandatory financial review, and a hearing date in 3 weeks. 3 weeks to prove I was sane, competent, and capable. 3 weeks to fight my own son in a courtroom. I read the papers 3 times. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I cried. Not out of weakness, but out of grief so sharp it hollowed me from the inside. When the tears finally stopped, I wiped my face, stood slowly, and walked to the window. The ranch lay in sunlight, stubborn and alive. Samuel, I whispered, they're coming for everything. But the wind seemed to answer. Then stand. So I did. The hearing date is set, but Claire has one more ruthless move planned before Martha ever reaches the courtroom. What devastating blow will she strike next? The house felt heavier that night, not silent, not loud, just watching. Jay's Dewary and Cudson's rope car Hoon in teaser me. And for the first time in weeks, I sensed something shifting in the air. Not safety. Not danger. BAS, Tabdili. I had just finished locking the barn when I saw headlights cutting across the field. Slow. Careful. Not Daniel. Not the lawyers. Someone else. A black SUV rolled to a stop near the porch. The kind of vehicle that didn't belong to this land, too shiny, too confident, too full of city perfume. Claire stepped out. Not dressed like someone visiting family. Not dressed like someone wanting peace. Red lipstick. Sharp heels. A smile that didn't match her eyes. Martha, she said softly, almost sweetly. A sweetness that ached. I kept my hand steady. Claire, what brings you here? Oh, nothing dramatic. Just a conversation. She walked closer, her perfume hitting the air like the start of a storm. I wanted to clear the air. After sending lawyers to my door? I asked. She laughed, a quiet, polished laugh. Lawyers are tools, Martha. Nothing more. Of course. Spoken like someone who had never built anything with her own hands. We stood facing each other under the dim porch light, 2 women from 2 different worlds, both refusing to step aside. Claire crossed her arms. Daniel is falling apart, you know. My heart pinched, but I didn't show it. How long has he been falling apart, Claire? She didn't answer. Instead, she circled the porch slowly, her heels tapping against old wood. Tap, tap, tap. I came here, she said, because I want to protect him. I almost laughed. Protect him from what? His own mother. No, she whispered, leaning closer. From you. My breath froze for 1 second. BASX second. For main Sidi Kadi Hogai. What exactly do you think I'm doing to him? Claire's smile sharpened. You're holding him back. You're controlling him with this. Dead land. These keys. Her eyes flicked to the chain around my neck. He worships this place because of you. And that's a problem? For a man who wants a future? Yes. There it was. The truth, naked, simple, cruel. This ranch is his inheritance, I said quietly. It's his blood. No, Claire said. It's your cage, and he's trapped inside it with you. Something shifted inside me, not anger, not fear. Clarity. She stepped even closer, her voice now a whisper dripping with confidence. Sign the partnership papers, Martha. Hand over the administrative rights. Let the place be used for something meaningful. I can help Daniel rebuild his life, but not if you keep him tied here. And if I say no? I asked. Claire didn't blink. You won't. Why not? Because you're old, she said simply. Because you're tired. Because you know you can't fight forever. For a moment, everything went still. The wind. The night. Even my heartbeat. Then I spoke quietly, almost gently. You're right, Claire. Her smile widened. I can't fight forever. She opened her mouth to respond, but I wasn't finished. But I don't have to fight forever. I took a slow step forward. I only have to fight long enough for the truth to show itself. A flicker, the first true crack in her expression. Martha, you've already lost, I whispered. You just don't know it yet. Her face froze. Her confidence faltered. For the first time, Claire actually looked afraid. And she should have been. Because I had a truth she didn't. Time was on my side, not hers. What will Claire attempt next after her confidence cracks, and what secret move has Martha already put into place that Claire doesn't see coming? The night after Claire's visit, sleep didn't touch me. I lay awake listening to the quiet breathing of the house. Jay's pura makan Mary bat sun rahaho. Storms announce themselves. But betrayal. Betrayal walks in soft shoes. By sunrise, I had made coffee, fed the chickens, and walked the entire fence line twice. Everything looked normal. But normal is where danger hides. I was heading back toward the porch when I saw something strange. Dust rising on the morning road. Not a car. Not a truck. A sheriff's vehicle. My heart dropped. Not from fear. From expectation. Sheriff Lawson stepped out, hat pulled low, boots coated in road dust, the kind of man who carried old truths in his eyes. Martha, he said, touching his hat. Morning. Sheriff, I nodded. What brings you here? He hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. Mind if I step inside? We should talk privately. We walked into the kitchen. He didn't sit. People with bad news rarely do. Martha, I received a call last night. His voice was gentle, almost apologetic. A call about you. I tightened my grip on the chair. Let me guess, I said quietly. From Daniel or from Claire? He swallowed. From both. I closed my eyes for 1 second. Just one. Then opened them. What did they say? He shifted uncomfortably, a big man suddenly looking too small. They said they're worried about your mental state. That you've been confused. Paranoid. Talking to yourself. Acting irrationally. A hollow laugh escaped me, dry, sharp. Sheriff, you've known me 40 years. You ever seen me confused? No, he said firmly. Never. Then why are you here? He sighed. Because they're building a case, Martha. A guardianship case. To have the court declare you unfit to manage the ranch. There it was. The attack wasn't coming. It had already begun. Claire, I whispered. Of course. Lawson lowered his voice. Look, I shouldn't be telling you this yet, but I will, because this land matters to this town, and because Samuel was my friend. He paused. They submitted a request for a wellness check. A judge-approved visit. From me. So you're here to see if I'm crazy? No, he said quickly. I'm here to give you a warning before official eyes show up. Something softened in my chest, respect, gratitude. Thank you, I said. He cleared his throat. Martha, they're also claiming the land is being neglected. Overgrown. Unsafe. They have photos. I frowned. I walk this ranch every day. There's nothing unsafe. That's what I thought, he said. But Martha, these photos, they ain't from here. My stomach twisted. Fake. Looks that way. A slow, cold understanding began to settle inside me. Claire wasn't guessing. She wasn't reacting. She was planning. A chess player moving 3 steps ahead. The sheriff stepped closer, lowering his voice. I don't like what's happening. But you need to be smart. Protect yourself. I already have, I said. How? I opened the cabinet near the pantry. Pulled out a folder. Set it on the table. Inside was my medical evaluation. Signed, stamped, clean. He let out a slow whistle. Well, that's going to ruin their angle. It will, I said. And that's not all. I opened the second compartment, revealing a flash drive, labeled neatly. Security footage. The sheriff blinked. You installed cameras? 6 months ago, I said. Samuel always said, protect the land, and protect yourself. Lawson straightened. Martha, what did the cameras catch? I lifted the flash drive gently, like holding a secret. The truth, I whispered. And his eyes widened. Because Claire's biggest mistake wasn't lying. It was assuming I wasn't watching. What did Martha's security cameras capture, and why is Claire about to face a truth she thought she had buried forever? The sheriff stared at the flash drive in my hand like it was a ticking clock. Martha, he said slowly, what exactly is on that? I didn't answer. Instead, I walked to the old laptop Samuel and I used for ranch accounts, the one no one but me touched. I plugged in the drive. A small window popped open. Camera 1, stable back door. Camera 2, main porch. Camera 3, study window. Camera 4, tool shed. Camera 5, fence line north. Camera 6, fence line south. The sheriff whistled softly. You weren't playing around. No, I said. Claire never plays fair, so why should I? I clicked on camera 3, the study window. My heartbeat slowed, steady and calm. Like the land itself was breathing with me. Footage loaded. 2 weeks earlier. 8:47 p.m. Night. Still. Quiet. Until a figure appeared near the window. Claire. Her hair tied tight, her face half covered by the shadows. She wasn't wandering. She wasn't curious. She was searching. Her phone light scanned the desk. The drawers. The shelves. Sheriff Lawson leaned in closer. That's breaking and entering, he muttered. I didn't blink. Wait, I said softly. There's more. Claire pulled out her phone, took pictures of documents, then reached into the drawer and removed the yellow envelope. My husband's envelope. The sheriff stiffened. She took it, he said. She actually took it. Keep watching, I whispered. Claire slipped the envelope into her bag, but then something surprising happened. Daniel appeared behind her. For a second, the room froze. Not the footage, us. Daniel's face looked tired. Lost. Confused. Claire, he whispered. What are you doing? He glanced around nervously, like a boy caught stealing apples. But Claire didn't look ashamed. She stepped close to him, put her hand on his chest, whispered something we couldn't hear. Daniel closed his eyes. His shoulders sagged. His resistance fell apart like old wood. And then, he nodded. He agreed. The sheriff murmured, Lord have mercy. But the worst wasn't that Daniel agreed. It was what Claire did next. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small bag of dust, gray, dirty, heavy. She walked to the corner of the study and sprinkled it on the floor. Then the window frame. Then the old wooden shelves. What is that? The sheriff asked. I already knew. My stomach tightened. Termite dust, I whispered. Sheriff Lawson swore under his breath. She was staging damage to claim the house was unsafe. And that wasn't all. Claire pulled out another bag. This one filled with dried weeds and broken branches. She scattered them near the outer wall. Looked at Daniel. And made him take pictures. Daniel didn't argue. Didn't refuse. He obeyed. Like someone who didn't know how to stop drowning. The footage froze at 8:55 p.m. The sheriff stepped back, shaking his head. Martha, this is enough to bury their entire case. But I didn't feel victory. I didn't feel relief. I only felt one thing. The ache of seeing my son used like a pawn in someone else's game. How long has he been following her lies? I whispered. The sheriff didn't answer. Because we both knew the truth. A man can get lost fast. When love turns into a leash. I closed the laptop softly. This isn't the end, I said. It's the beginning. The sheriff nodded. I'll file this. But Martha, be ready. Claire won't go down easy. I looked out the window toward the fields. Golden, steady, loyal. I don't need her to go down easy, I said. I just need her to go down. Now that the truth is recorded, how will Claire strike back, and what impossible choice will Martha face when Daniel shows up again, this time alone? The morning after the sheriff left, I thought the land would feel lighter. Truth had finally shown its face. Sab kuch mir favor me jaa rahada. Lekin ajib bat yahai. Jab sach somni adahai, to sab esi peli dard hodahai, sakun bad me. I was pouring coffee when I heard footsteps on the porch. Slow. Uneven. Like someone carrying shame instead of weight. I knew that walk. I'd known it since my son was a boy trying to hide a broken toy behind his back. Daniel. He stood in the doorway, thinner than last time, his eyes swollen, his hair messy like he hadn't slept. Mum, he whispered, voice shaking. Can I come in? I didn't move for a moment. Vas asi dekti rahi. Because sometimes a mother needs one extra second to prepare her heart. Finally I nodded. Yes, Daniel. Come inside. He stepped in, but the house didn't welcome him the way it used to. Even the walls seemed to ask. Why no? He sat at the table where so many memories were waiting like silent witnesses. I know you saw the sheriff, he started. Yes, I said simply. Did he tell you everything? Enough. Daniel swallowed hard. Mom, I didn't know Claire was going this far. I swear. I raised an eyebrow. You didn't know she sneaked into my study? You didn't know she took documents? You didn't know she staged termite damage and weeds? You didn't know she faked photos? He flinched at every question, like each word was a slap he deserved. I saw some of it, he admitted. But I didn't think she'd use it. I thought it was just for leverage. Leverage? My voice came out low, steady, deadly calm. Daniel, leverage is used on enemies, not mothers. He lowered his head like a little boy waiting for judgment. I'm sorry, Mom. Are you sorry because you lied? Or sorry because you got caught? He lifted his gaze, eyes red, wet. Both. For a moment, the silence between us felt heavier than any fight we'd ever had. Mom, Claire told me. Stop right there. I held up my hand. I don't want to hear what Claire told you. I want to hear what you believe. His jaw tightened, then loosened, then tightened again, a man fighting his own conscience. I believe. He paused, chest rising and falling. I believe I failed you. And Dad. And this land. A small, painful breath escaped me. Why did you let her do all this, Daniel? He pressed both hands into his hair, frustrated. Because she made me feel like if I didn't choose her every time, I'd lose her. His voice cracked. And I was stupid enough to think losing her would destroy me. And now? He looked up, eyes filled with a different kind of fear, the one that comes after illusions break. Now I realize. I already destroyed myself trying to keep her. For the first time, I felt something shift in him. Not manipulation. Not excuses. Honesty. Raw, trembling honesty. Mum, he whispered. What did the camera show? The sheriff said you have proof, but he didn't tell me what. I stared at him long enough for him to hold his breath. Do you really want to see, I asked softly, what the woman you chose over me is capable of? His shoulders stiffened. But he nodded. Yes. I need to. I walked to the drawer. Pulled out the flash drive. Placed it on the table. This, I said quietly, is the night Claire stole the envelope. And the night you helped her. Daniel paled completely. Mom, please. You asked, I said. Now you will see. His hands shook as he reached for the drive. Because the truth wasn't just going to break Claire. It was about to break Daniel too. What will Daniel do when he finally watches the footage, and will the truth destroy him, or finally set him free? Daniel sat at the kitchen table like a man about to face his own execution. His hands trembled as he pushed the flash drive into the old laptop. The screen lit up cold, blue, unforgiving. Which one? He whispered. Camera 3, I said. The study window. He clicked it. And then, silence. Real, brutal silence, the kind that presses on your chest. The playback began. 8:47 p.m. Claire's shadow moved across the glass. Her perfume. Even through the screen, I swear I could almost smell it. Sugar and poison. She scanned the room with her phone light. She opened drawers. She touched things that didn't belong to her. She took pictures as if she owned the house. Daniel stiffened. Mom, I didn't know she was taking. Watch, I said. Then Claire pulled out the yellow envelope. Samuel's envelope. The one she had no right to touch. Daniel's face collapsed. No, I didn't know she. Mom, I thought she. God. But I wasn't done. Keep watching, I whispered. 8:51 p.m. A second figure entered the frame. Daniel. He walked into the study behind her. Shoulders slumped. Face tired. A man who had already lost himself. Mum, he whispered to the screen. Please don't show. You asked to see the truth, I said quietly. And truth has no mercy. On the footage, Claire placed a hand on Daniel's chest. Her lips moved soft, sweet, sharp enough to cut. Then Daniel nodded. Not forced. Not dragged. He nodded. Voluntarily. The real Daniel watching the screen choked on breath. I was scared, he said, voice cracking. She said if I didn't help her, she'd leave. She said you hated her. She said you'd never let us build a life. She said, I repeated. Yes, Claire said, and you believed her. He shut his eyes tight, pained. Like someone watching a version of himself he wished had never existed. But the footage wasn't done. Claire sprinkled termite dust. Daniel's jaw clenched in horror. Oh God, he whispered. Mom, she told me it was from the old shed. She said we needed proof the house was decaying. I didn't know she brought it. He slammed a hand over his mouth, fighting nausea. I didn't know she planned to use it in court. I swear it. I swear it on. He stopped, because the one thing he would have sworn on, his integrity, wasn't there anymore. Watch, I said again softly. Claire spread dead weeds near the wall. Took his phone. Made him hold the camera. Made him take pictures. And he did. Every frame was a confession, whether he meant it or not. Finally, the footage ended. Daniel didn't move. His hands gripped the table like he was holding on to the last piece of himself. His voice came out broken. Mom, I betrayed you. I didn't answer. Because betrayal looks different when there's proof. He looked at me, truly looked, for the first time in years. Not as a son defending a wife. Not as a man trying to win an argument. But as a child realizing he had burned the hands that raised him. I don't deserve forgiveness, he whispered. No, I said softly. You don't. His eyes flooded. But you do deserve truth. And truth is this. Claire manipulated you. But you let her. Daniel collapsed into the chair, head in his hands. Mom, what do I do now? You start, I said, by choosing who you want to be, without her. He lifted his head slowly, a man stripped to the bone. And for the first time in a long time, there was no Claire in his eyes. Just Daniel. Daniel has finally seen the truth, but what happens when Claire discovers he knows everything and comes back to reclaim control? Daniel didn't sleep that night. He sat on the porch long after the moon climbed high, staring at the fields like they were strangers he was meeting for the first time. I didn't join him. Some moments a mother must let her child face alone. By sunrise, he walked back into the kitchen, eyes swollen, face pale, a man who had been emptied out. Mom, he whispered. I want to make this right. Before I could answer, tires screeched outside. Fast. Angry. Unexpected. Daniel froze. You expecting someone? He asked. No. We stepped onto the porch. And my stomach tightened. A white BMW. Claire's. She slammed the door so hard the sound cracked across the yard like a whip. Her heels hit the ground in rapid, furious clicks. Daniel whispered. Oh God, she knows. Of course she did. Claire always knew when she was losing control. Martha, she shouted before even reaching the porch. We need to talk. Now. Daniel stepped in front of me instinctively. Claire, stop. She didn't even look at him. Her eyes were locked on me, sharp, wild, desperate. What did you show him? She hissed. What lies did you poison his mind with? I didn't blink. Nothing you didn't do yourself. Her jaw tightened. Martha, don't play games with me. You think you can turn him against me? I didn't have to, I said calmly. You did that. Daniel swallowed hard. Claire. I saw the footage. For the first time since I'd known her. Claire froze. What footage? She asked, voice icy, too calm, too careful. Daniel's voice shook. The cameras. In Mum's study. The ones you didn't know about. Her face changed. Not fear. Calculation. Then she laughed suddenly, sharply. You think some blurry video means anything? You think a judge will believe this old housewife over me? This old housewife, I said softly, has every angle recorded, crystal clear. Claire's smile twitched. This is ridiculous, she snapped. Daniel, she's manipulating you. No. For the first time, Daniel raised his voice. No, Claire. You manipulated me. She stepped toward him, lowering her tone into that sugary softness she used like a weapon. Baby, you know I love you. You know we were building a future. Stop, he whispered, stepping back. Please. Stop lying. Those 2 words broke something in her face. Claire wasn't a woman in love. She was a woman losing her favorite tool. What else did she tell you? Claire demanded. That I was the villain? That she's the victim. No one had to tell me, Daniel said. I saw it myself. Claire's breathing quickened. Her hands trembled, not with fear, but fury. You don't understand what you're doing, she hissed. You're throwing away everything we planned. We didn't plan anything, Daniel said quietly. You planned. I followed. Claire's mask cracked. You're nothing without me, she snapped. I rebuilt you. I made you better. I gave you a life. A life built on lies, he said. She stared at him like she didn't recognize him. Mum's right, Daniel added softly. You turned me against the one person who never betrayed me. Claire shook her head violently. No, you don't get to walk away from me. You don't get to ruin what I built. This isn't your land, I said gently. This isn't your home. Claire leaned forward until her face was inches from mine. You think you've won? She whispered. You think this is over? I didn't break eye contact. No, Claire. This is the beginning of your end. For the first time. Real fear glimmered in her eyes. She spun on her heel, stormed back to the car, and peeled away, dirt flying behind her like smoke from a fire. Daniel exhaled shakily. Mum, she's not done. No, I said. She's about to get desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. Claire is losing control, but what final move will she make when she realizes Martha has the power to destroy her completely? Claire's car disappeared down the dirt road, but her anger stayed behind like smoke after a wildfire. Daniel stood frozen on the porch, chest rising and falling fast. Mum, she's not going to let this go, he whispered. No, I said. She won't. She's a woman who only understands one language, control. And she's losing it. Daniel swallowed hard. What do we do now? We wait. Because a cornered snake always shows its teeth. And Claire was very much cornered. By evening, the attack came. Not in person. Not by phone. Through the law. A white envelope sat in the mailbox, stamped urgently. Daniel brought it inside, his hands shaking. What is it? He asked. I opened it slowly. Inside was a letter from the court. A new petition filed by Claire's attorney. A petition claiming the ranch was unsafe for habitation. Martha displayed signs of cognitive decline. Daniel feared for his mother's mental stability. A temporary caretaker must be assigned. Control of the ranch should be moved to an outside guardian. Daniel stared at the paper, horrified. I didn't file this, he shouted. Mom, I swear, I didn't sign anything. I pointed to the last page. It's Claire's signature. Not yours. He exhaled shakily, dropping into a chair. She forged documents, Mom. She's trying to take everything. I didn't panic. Not anymore. She's trying her last move, I said. The final push before the truth crushes her. Daniel buried his face in his hands. I can't believe I ever loved her. You didn't love her, I said gently. You loved the version she created for you. Suddenly, a sound. Gravel. Tires. Fast. We went outside. Another car. A black sedan. Not sheriff. Not friend. Claire's attorney. He stepped out holding a thick folder. Mrs. Martha, he said stiffly. I'm here to inform you the court is considering emergency measures to evaluate your mental competence. Daniel stepped between us. She's perfectly healthy. We have medical proof. The attorney didn't flinch. That will be reviewed. Until then, Claire has requested. He opened the folder. A temporary restraining order keeping Daniel away from the ranch. Daniel froze. What? He whispered. The attorney continued. Claire claims Daniel tried to intimidate her. That he is unstable. That he has violent tendencies. What the hell? Daniel snapped. That's a lie, I said calmly. A bold one. And, the attorney added slowly, Claire is filing a motion for full control of your share of the property since she believes you are being emotionally manipulated by Martha. Daniel's jaw dropped. She's turning everything around. She's making me the problem. That's what manipulators do, I whispered. The attorney shifted. Look, I'm just the messenger. But between us, Claire is pushing hard. Too hard. Judges don't like chaos. They like proof. I lifted my chin. Well, I said softly. I have proof. The attorney blinked. Proof. I handed him a copy of the security footage, labeled, time-stamped, undeniable. He hesitated. What is this? Truth, I said. And per law, you must submit it to the court. All of it. Daniel crossed his arms. And if you choose to hide it, he said, I'll personally file a complaint for evidence tampering. The attorney looked between us, mother and son standing firm, united. For the first time. He looked nervous. I'll take this to the judge. He got back in his car and drove off quickly. Like a man holding a bomb he didn't want to drop. Daniel turned to me, breath shaking. Mom, this is going to explode. I nodded slowly. Yes. And I'm done being quiet. I looked out at the fields, steady, ancient, unshaken. Claire thinks she's fighting for land, I said softly. But this isn't about land. This is about truth. Daniel exhaled. And who wins when truth finally comes out? I looked him in the eyes. The one who never lied. With the evidence now in the court's hands, what explosive confrontation awaits when Claire is forced to face Martha, not in private, but in front of a judge? 3 days later, the courthouse stood like an old stone giant. Silent, cold, waiting to judge. Daniel and I walked up the steps together. Not as mother and son wounded by betrayal, but as two people choosing truth over shame. Inside, the hallway buzzed with whispers. People from town. Faces I knew. Faces I didn't. But none of them mattered. Because at the end of the hallway, standing beside her lawyer, was Claire. Dressed in white again. A color she didn't deserve. Her eyes widened when she saw Daniel beside me. Not behind me. Not avoiding me. Beside me. For the first time, Claire's confidence flickered. Daniel, she said softly. You're here with her? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. We walked past her without stopping. And that hurt her more than words ever could. Inside the courtroom, the judge entered, stern, gray-haired, and uninterested in theatrics. Petitioners, present your case. Claire's attorney stood first. Your Honor, we are requesting temporary guardianship over Mrs. Hayes' estate. The judge raised an eyebrow. On what grounds? The attorney began reading from a paper. Voice smooth, rehearsed, dripping with manipulation. Mental instability. Paranoia. Neglect of property. Emotional unpredictability. Unsafe living conditions. I didn't react. I didn't flinch. Because lies only have power when they cause fear. The judge looked at me over her glasses. Mrs. Hayes, do you deny these claims? Before I could speak, Claire's attorney added quickly. We also have photographic evidence, Your Honor. The judge nodded. Show the court. He displayed the photos on a screen. Termite dust. Rotting wood. Broken weeds. Damaged shelves. Fake. Staged. Every piece of it. Daniel clenched his fists. The attorney stepped closer. These images clearly show an unsafe, deteriorating home. Mrs. Hayes is not capable of. Your Honor, Mr. Miller interrupted, rising from his seat. We have evidence to respond. The judge motioned. Proceed. Miller reached into his briefcase, pulled out a USB drive, and handed it to the clerk. This footage, he said, was taken from the defendant's surveillance cameras. Daniel held his breath. Claire's face drained of color, like someone pulling the light out of her. The clerk loaded the video. The courtroom darkened. The footage began to play. Claire at the study window, opening drawers, taking pictures, stealing the envelope, sprinkling termite dust, placing dead weeds, directing Daniel, manipulating, acting, planning. Every lie. Exposed. Frame by frame. Gasps filled the room. The judge leaned forward, eyes sharp. Is that you, Ms. Carter? Claire's voice shook. That video. It's. The judge cut her off. Answer the question. Is that you in the footage? Claire's jaw trembled. Yes. And did you stage the damages shown in your own photographic evidence? Silence. A long, humiliating silence. Then, Yes. The entire courtroom erupted, whispers, shock, outrage. Daniel covered his face, not out of shame, but out of disbelief that he had ever trusted her. The judge banged her gavel. Order. Order. When silence returned, she fixed her gaze on Claire. Ms. Carter, your petition is fraudulent. You manipulated evidence. You coerced Mr. Hayes. You attempted to defraud the court. Claire looked small now. Small and trapped and finally exposed. Martha Hayes, the judge said, turning to me. You are fully competent. Your estate remains in your control. And I will be filing a recommendation for an ethics investigation into the petitioners. Daniel let out a broken breath. A sound like a man finally exhaling years of shame. Claire whispered one last sentence, defeated. Daniel, please. He didn't turn. He didn't speak. He just walked toward me, placed a hand on my shoulder, and whispered, Mom, I'm so sorry. And this time, I believed him. The court battle is over, but what final choice will Martha make for her future, and what will become of Daniel once the dust finally settles? The courthouse emptied slowly, people drifting out in hushed whispers, stealing glances at us, at the mother who stood her ground, and the son who finally found his way back. But I didn't feel victorious. Victory is loud. What I felt was quieter, heavier, like a long storm finally breaking into sunlight. Daniel and I stepped outside together. The air smelled different. Not of fear, not of court papers, just clean. He stood on the steps, staring at the sky as if seeing it for the first time in years. Mom, he said softly, I don't know how to fix what I broke. I looked at him, not the man who followed lies, not the boy who lost himself, but the son who finally returned. You start by not breaking it again, I said gently. His eyes filled, and he nodded. I will never let anyone come between us again. Not Claire. Not fear. Not my own mistakes. For the first time, I reached out and took his hand. A simple gesture, but it felt like rebuilding a bridge that had nearly burned down. We walked to the truck. He hesitated before opening the door. What happens to Claire now? He asked quietly. She faces the consequences of her choices, I said. And you face yours. And you? He asked. I smiled a little, the kind of smile that only comes after surviving something big. I go home. Back at the ranch. The land greeted us like an old friend. Steady, patient, unchanged. Daniel walked slowly toward the porch, touching the railing the way someone touches memory. Mom, he whispered, I didn't realize how much I missed this place. You didn't miss the place, I said. You missed yourself. He laughed weakly, rubbing his eyes. Maybe I should stay for a while. Help out. Fix the damage I caused. I looked at him carefully, mother, caretaker, guardian of legacy. Stay, I said. For as long as you need. His shoulders loosened, relief flooding him. Then he hesitated, painfully. What about the baby? He asked. Claire's child. The child is innocent, I said softly. And you'll be a father. But not the kind Claire tried to shape. Be the father you choose to be. Tears slid down Daniel's face, quiet, ashamed, grateful. You still believe I can be better? I placed a hand on his cheek. You already are. Later that evening, I walked out to the field, the sun dipping low, sky golden. Samuel's favorite hour. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone. Daniel came to stand beside me. Mom, he said, I want to rebuild this place with you. The right way. The way Dad wanted. And in that moment, the ranch felt alive again. Not because of soil or fences or crops. Because the heart of it, family, had finally begun to heal. I took the keys from around my neck, the metal warm from years against my skin. Then I placed them gently in Daniel's hand. Not yet, I said. But someday, when you're truly ready, these will be yours. His breath caught. Hope, responsibility, and forgiveness all tangled together. Mom, I won't fail you again. I know, I said. And for the first time in a long, painful journey, I believed it. The ranch stood steady around us, a witness to everything we survived, and everything still ahead. Sometimes the most powerful victory is not winning a battle. but saving the person you were losing. Friends, if this story touched your heart, don't just like it. Take a moment to think of someone in your life you're ready to forgive, and share this video for them. And if you want more deep, emotional, and soul-gripping stories like this, hit subscribe. Because stories like these, stories that stay with you, live right here on this channel. And if Martha's journey moved you, don't miss the next story. Just visit the channel and let the stories call you in.